Hello everyone and welcome to Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, Dylan Lasagna, and this is episode number 264 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all your filthy casual takes on the world of sports, whether it be on events in the past, present, or whatever's coming up in the future for all you casual fans out there like you and me. And in this episode, we're continuing along with our retro road to WrestleMania as we're getting closer and closer to the grandest stage of them all, even though it doesn't really feel all that grand. This time around with WrestleMania 41. So we're continuing along our retro road to WrestleMania as we got another one to talk about as we look back at the 15th anniversary, even though it's well past its 15th anniversary of WrestleMania 26. So yeah, I overlooked the 15th anniversary of WrestleMania 26, and it was one that I replayed a lot for some reason back when I was little. And I'll give you a little bit of a story about this WrestleMania 26 when I was a little youngling later on in this episode of the podcast. But before we talk about WrestleMania 26 in our retro road to WrestleMania, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure to smash the like button if you're watching this on YouTube and leave a comment with your takes on the topic at hand, that being WrestleMania 26 and this retro review of it, and your memories of this particular WrestleMania, your favorite match, your least favorite match, your favorite moment from this particular WrestleMania, all the good stuff. And yeah, smash the subscribe button as well if you're not subscribed already. And if you're not, what are you waiting for? And for all the audio listeners out there, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to continue to do so wherever you get your podcasts, where Very Cold Lasagna is available. And follow the show on social media, on X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, share us with your friends, share us with your neighbors, share us with whoever is around you, whether it's at work or school, the good, the bad, the ugly, about this filthy casual podcast entitled Very Cold Lasagna. So with that being said, let's talk about another pay-per-view, another WrestleMania that's going to go in the books in our retro road to WrestleMania, WrestleMania 26. A little bit of a story before we talk about the bits and pieces of this specific WrestleMania. I actually had, and I'm not sure if I still have it actually, the DVD. Still have the DVD for this specific WrestleMania. When I was a little youngling, I decided to buy the DVD from this WrestleMania. This was when I was very young. This was like my third favorite. I considered this my third all-time favorite WrestleMania. I'm not sure why it was, but yeah, it was for some reason. I thought this WrestleMania was that good that I decided to buy it on DVD. I decided to go to my local Walmart and get it on DVD. And the DVD was actually the DVD was actually a nice it had a nice cover. It was like a 3 or 4 disc set, I believe, and it actually had some really good artwork around the DVD. So yeah, I mean, that was my that's for the most part what I remember initially from WrestleMania 26 as we segue into the show itself. So yeah, can't believe it's already been 15 years, even though it seems like a long ways since the days of that particular WrestleMania. So anyway, yeah, just a little bit of story of my some initial memories from that particular WrestleMania, and yeah, my thoughts on I thought that it was good. Only because, I had the DVD. I had the DVD, and on that DVD was a certain match, and I think it also had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony for that year, and the Hall of Fame class was it was so, but and I think there's a few other special features on that DVD. But enough talking about the DVD. Let's talk about this show itself. So this particular WrestleMania took place on March 28th, 2010. Then, it was the 26th annual WrestleMania, and that was first announced a year prior on February 24th, 2009 at a press conference at the University of Phoenix Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, which is now known nowadays as State Farm Stadium, which is the home of the NFL's Arizona Cardinals. So it was actually trying to be planned well in advance of 2009 by the stadium's operator, Global Spectrum. So they're trying to work with WWE to bring a WrestleMania to that stadium, which I believe was particularly kind of new at the time. It was like around 2006 or 2005 that they had that. They officially opened that stadium, and then they've been trying to get WWE to bring a WrestleMania to that stadium for quite some time. So, yeah, around 2008, they announced its intention to host this particular WrestleMania, and that's when they made the formal announcement a year later. So when it came to this WrestleMania, this was just the third time to be in an open air stadium. The other two times, I believe, was in 2000. Oh yeah, the year prior, 2 years prior, 2008, and then the other one was, 2003 in Seattle. I think that was the other one as well. If it wasn't, then someone could fact check that for me. But that's the two I remember. That's the two I remember that were open air stadiums. The one in 2008 in Orlando, Florida, and the one in Seattle, the Mariners Stadium in 2003. And then for this particular WrestleMania, with the State Farm Stadium being open air, it had a retractable roof. It was open several times during the event. Although I don't remember it closing at all during this specific WrestleMania. So with that being open air, with it having a retractable roof, it meant the so-called dreaded pillars every fan nowadays loves to talk about when trying to plan for WrestleMania. Yeah, it made its appearance here, and it had a very unique design that's not really present with this WrestleMania, with these modern WrestleManias. It had a very triangular pillar design that I'm not really sure how to describe it now. And what I also liked with this specific WrestleMania stage set is kind of like a tower. It was kind of like a tower-ish design, and it had a really long ramp though. But nonetheless, it had a pretty interesting set design, and the pillars, even the pillar set, was kind of interesting to say the least. And at the top of the pillar set was kind of like this light that beamed bright above it. Even when you had the aerial shots, it showed that light. So I found that to be kind of cool. So yeah, that's pretty much all the bits and pieces about the WrestleMania in particular, like the pre-planning stuff and like the factoids around it. Yeah, not really too much prior to the event itself. So that being said, let's talk about the actual show itself. And it all kicked off with a exclusive to DVD 26-man pre-show battle royale. Some notable participants included Chavo Guerrero, Mark Henry, The Great Khali, Chris Masters, Vladimir Kozlov, Goldust, Shad Gaspard, William Regal, Santino Marella, Zack Ryder, and Yoshitatsu. Like I said, it was exclusive to DVD, but recently, the gods in the WWE Vault YouTube channel, they recently released this compilation of Mania pre-show matches, and yeah, this match happened to be included in that compilation, so it made my job easier. It definitely made my job easier rather than me having to search to find the DVD again only to find out that I probably don't have the DVD anymore. Another interesting note, this had another ring announcer that many don't know anymore, by the name of Savannah, aka Angela Fong. So yeah, she was the ECW, which was pretty much non-existent by that time, but she was the NXT, the NXT that everyone loves to hate. And yeah, it's justifiable though. The NXT, the game show version, yeah, she was the ring announcer for that version of NXT when it was first starting out. So Savannah, aka Angela Fong, she was the ring announcer for that version of NXT, and she had the honor, in air quotes, of announcing all 26 people. Speaking of those first season NXT rookies, they were there to watch this match unfold. Yeah, this DVD exclusive match. You have to watch this one. So in case you didn't know these NXT rookies, the first season NXT rookies, they were Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, Skip Sheffield, later known as Ryback, Michael Tarver, Heath Slater, David Otunga, Darren Young, and Daniel Bryan. Obviously now known as Bryan Danielson. Yeah. They made them watch, of all matches, this one, like in the flesh. So anyway, not really much to speak on this pre-show Jobber Royale, but surprisingly, Mark Henry and Great Khali, the two biggest men in this match, they were basically eliminated. So not really much to say about that, and not even the fan favorite that people were claiming for, Santino Marella. Yeah, he didn't even make it to the Final Four. So the Final Four did come down to Mike Knox, Finlay, Zack Ryder, and Yoshitatsu. And Hornswoggle also made an appearance to help out Finlay. But Ryder eliminated both Mike Knox and Finlay while dumping Hornswoggle after Finlay got eliminated. But Yoshitatsu ultimately won this DVD exclusive Battle Royale with a KO kick on Zack Ryder, who was on the apron. So yeah, that was pretty much it for this Jobber exclusive DVD Battle Royale. And honestly, the only thing I remember about Yoshitatsu was his theme music. And yeah, pretty much the fact that when I had the DVD for this WrestleMania was, that this match was even on the DVD itself. And nothing more. So again, why did Vince have all the NXT guys of all matches watch this one? He kind of had him watch a more quality one, like, the main event, the second to last match. I don't know. So anyway, we begin the main show with a rendition of America the Beautiful, and then we get to the intro package where it replayed all the WrestleMania moments and the usual tagline of all the future and present stars looking to make their WrestleMania moment for that year. So then we begin the actual show with the first matchup of the night, and that was the unified WWE Tag Team Champions, Big Show and The Miz, aka Show Miz, taking on the team of John Morrison and R-Truth. There wasn't a lot of backstory, if there was any at all, to this match, other than Michael Cole mentioning during the match that Morrison and R-Truth, they won a 3-way number one contenders match on SmackDown to earn this title match. It wasn't mentioned when that was, nor do I remember, since I was too young to. And I'm not I did watch SmackDown like every week on Friday. I mean, because I was young, and that's what I did during that time on Fridays. But regardless, I don't know. I don't remember what the hell how this match was set up. So this match itself, it was not really much to speak of, because even though both Morrison and Truth got some really good offense in, which the Phoenix crowd loved at the time for an opener, this ended way too soon. Like, it ended as soon as it started, because Big Show on a blind tag knocked out John Morrison mid-flight of the flying chuck kick that allowed Show Miz to retain their tag team titles. And this was during the time where John Morrison was a pretty good mid-carder. It's just the fact that, promo skills were not exactly his strong suit. But, and like I said, Morrison and Truth, they got some solid offense in, but Show Miz, aka Big Show and The Miz, they were booked like the more cohesive unit. And it definitely showed here once R-Truth was taken out of the match by Big Show. And that's pretty much all she wrote from there. Not really much else to say on that match. So then we had the second matchup of the night, and that was the Legacy triple threat match between Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase. Randy Orton formed this group called The Legacy, which was basically his version of Evolution back in late 2008. And it had pretty much the same premise as Evolution, except all of them were multi-generational wrestlers, and they were just there to pretty much help Randy Orton win the WWE Championship at any and all costs. That's pretty much the premise of the legacy. But then things started to take a downturn 2 months prior to this WrestleMania when Cody Rhodes accidentally got Randy Orton disqualified in a WWE title match against Sheamus at the Royal Rumble, which caused Randy Orton to attack both him and Ted DiBiase. And things got even worse for Legacy when Ted DiBiase eliminated Randy Orton from the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship with help from Cody via a steel pipe. So the next night on Raw, Legacy has this 6-man tag to test their unity, their loyalty with one another. And of course, typical Randy Orton attacks both of them, attacks Cody Rhodes, gives an RKO to DiBiase, and leaves them high and dry to lose the match and leaves the group as well. So a couple weeks later, Rhodes and DiBiase beat Randy Orton in a handicap match, and that's how this matchup was made. So going into this match, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase, they're pretty much saying, "Oh, we don't care between either one of us who won this match as long as Randy Orton loses his match." So they didn't care who was gonna get the pin or in the win. And for most of this match, this 3-way, they kind of did as advertised. They made it a handicap match against Randy Orton. And that's pretty much the majority of this match. But that's pretty much that game plan was pretty much going to go out the window because, guess what happened in the last couple of minutes? Ted DiBiase went for the first pin attempt of the match while Cody Rhodes was trying to go for a moonsault, and they began fighting. And then they stopped fighting once they realized Randy Orton, he recovered enough to go on offense. And that was a mistake by both of them, as Orton rallied back against his former disciples and put them away for good. With a double draping DDT, Cody got punted in the head, and Ted DiBiase got RKO'd to win this Legacy triple threat match. I mean, it was a decent match for what it was, but obviously the main story was Randy Orton getting his get back on both of his former Legacy teammates. Honestly, I mean, even looking back at it, I mean, I'm trying to look back at my younger self, thinking, was anyone realistically thinking that either Cody or Ted gonna beat Randy Orton? I mean, really? And interestingly enough, the commentary, whether it was Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and Matt Striker, and Matt Striker was also made his first and only WrestleMania appearance on commentary, and I'd say he actually did pretty decent in his only WrestleMania appearance on commentary for this one, by the way. But anyway, going back to this match, the commentary minus Matt Striker, their revisionist history towards Cody and Ted, they're acting like as if they treated it was like Randy, like they treated Randy Orton poorly when it was the other way around. Yeah, it pretty much reminded me of a certain black-haired lady getting glazed by Michael Cole and Pat McAfee during the summer and beyond of 2024, and still to this day, huh? Yeah, it reminds me of that. Cody and Ted getting treated poorly when it was the other way around with Randy Orton in 2010. And the comparisons to that and to now with a certain black-haired lady. That's about to get inserted Daniel Bryan style into a Women's World Championship match. Think about that, huh? So the aftermath saw Randy Orton go on his 3-year-long babyface run, which, I mean, it was evident. It was justified, even though it's kind of a little flawed. Given how fans at the time were red hot for him. I mean, they certainly loved him. And then you had pre-American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. he had some pretty solid success in the upper mid card with the dashing and undashing Cody Rhodes gimmicks throughout the next year. They tried to do something with Ted DiBiase, giving him the $1 Million Man gimmick in the $1 Million title. But unfortunately, it didn't really pan out for him. And then they tried to give him the DiBiase Posse gimmick, but also didn't pan out. And yeah, he left the WWE like 2 years later. So then the third match, you saw the Money in the Bank ladder match, and the participants were Christian, Dolph Ziggler, Evan Bourne, Jack Swagger, Kane, Matt Hardy, Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, Drew McIntyre, and Kofi Kingston. The number just kept getting bigger and bigger, and yeah, the names were a lot. This was a record 10 people in this match. So qualifying matches began the night after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And yeah, like I said, as the month went along, the number of participants went from 8 to this record 10, with Kofi Kingston getting the last spot on the Raw before Mania. And I'm not sure what the decision was to increase the number during the point of time on this last month before Mania, but yeah, I'm not sure why. But anyway, another interesting note was that that we'll talk about a little bit more was that, yeah, this was the 5th Money in the Bank ladder match at this WrestleMania. But interestingly enough, little did we know that this would be the last, unfortunately. And I'll expand on that in a little bit. So for the Money in the Bank ladder match itself, it was pretty much a clusterfuck. But I will say, even in a clusterfuck full of mostly lower to mid-card guys in this match, hearing the old theme songs of all these guys, except for Kane's, because his was pretty ass. I miss Slow Chemical so much. That theme song is probably his best theme. But hearing even all the Jobber theme songs during this time period, it's better than what we got with Damn Def Rebel. Like, can we get an actual music composer for the WWE, like all the WWE theme songs now? Like, I mean, there are only very few good WWE themes under Def Rebel, but most of them are hot ass. Like, when you even have a guy like Jack Swagger, who was very hated, during this WrestleMania. And when they were playing, duh, duh, Jack, what's up? Oh, yeah. When he got serious boos at this WrestleMania, when this theme played, that just goes to show you how much WWE themes have devolved over time. Like, seriously. The match itself, out of all of the Money in the Bank matches by that point, there were only like 5 of them since it was only at WrestleMania. Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was probably out of all 5 of them, it was the worst. It was the worst of the bunch, because I mean, you had like 10 people. That was like in years prior, you first started out with 6. In WrestleMania 22, you had 6, and then I believe you had 8. Starting with WrestleMania 23 to 25, and then you capped it at 10, which was was too much in my opinion. It was too much, and they were trying to showcase everybody, but it just felt a little sloppy for most of the match. The only good spots that were in this match was the airborne off a ladder bridge from Evan Bourne, the ladder stilt from Kofi Kingston, where he was just walking it, like using the ladders like chopsticks. And then you had that nasty back bump that Matt Hardy took, taking a backdrop onto a ladder. And then the twist of fate reversal Christian gave Matt Hardy to take Matt Hardy out of the match. So you had the finish, which saw Jack Swagger knock Christian off the ladder with the Money in the Bank briefcase, as Jack Swagger won the 5th and final Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania. And why do I say the final Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania? Well, that's because the decision was made after this particular WrestleMania to make the Money in the Bank ladder match into its own pay-per-view starting in July of 2010. And it's still going strong 15 years later. Well, at least for now, because we don't have, at this time, a Money in the Bank pay-per-view in 2025. But still, it's still going strong. And, well, still, part of me would like to have the Money in the Bank ladder match back at WrestleMania, because a lot of these Money in the Bank pay-per-views are pretty hit and miss, to be honest with you. And if you want more people on the card at WrestleManias, I mean, I get it. Not everyone can be on WrestleMania in a meaningful manner, but if you would like to get some more people on WrestleMania in a somewhat meaningful manner, the Money in the Bank ladder match for both the men's and the women is right there. It's right there. Going back to this match, though, with Jack Swagger, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I had a lot to say about Jack Swagger, but I'll reserve it for a match we're going to talk about later. But he didn't really get much of a push prior to this match, because he had lost the ECW title prior to this match, like a couple months prior to this match, and the ECW brand itself dissolved a month prior. So yeah, the crowd wasn't really into Jack Swagger, but Vince was still kind of pushing him during this point in time. And yeah, they weren't into him doing a certain thing with that Money in the Bank contract sooner rather than later. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get to that particular match. But yeah, Jack Swagger won this Money in the Bank ladder match, the final one at WrestleMania. And yeah, we'll definitely get back to Jack Swagger in a moment. So after we got a Hall of Fame Class of 2010 showcase, that class included the likes of Stu Hart, Bob Uecker, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, we got on to our next match, and that was The Game. Triple H taking on the Celtic Warrior, Sheamus. In terms of this match, it had a pretty simple story of Sheamus getting eliminated by Triple H in the WWE title Elimination Chamber match a month prior. And in effect, Sheamus lost his WWE title without even making it to the final two or even being the runner-up. So, yeah, Sheamus lost his title in that final three with him, John Cena, and Triple H. So, as revenge, Sheamus attacked Triple H 2 weeks later after Triple H's tag team title rematch that he and Shawn Michaels competed in. So, Sheamus decided to challenge The Game to a WrestleMania match, promising to put his claimed former idol down for good. And Triple H accepted that match. So, this match was all right. Sheamus, however, he wasn't yet over enough with the fans during this point in time. So, unlike how he is now. And that was pretty evident when he pretty much dominated a large part of this match, and the crowd was dead silent for Sheamus. And Sheamus was another one of those guys during this point in time that Vince was pushing hard, and there was some potential with Sheamus. He had already won the WWE title, like I said, once during this point in time. Unfortunately, fans weren't really catching on to Sheamus quite yet until much later. Still, he and Triple H told a decent enough story. The then upstart Sheamus dominating the veteran Triple H, only for Triple H to pull a hat trick up his butt via the pedigree out of nowhere to win a decent but still kind of forgettable match. The pedigree out of nowhere and the broke kick near fall. Interesting note, the pump kick by that Sheamus had, it wasn't called the broke kick at the time. But going back to that, those two things were pretty much the lone highlights for the match and this crowd. Otherwise, yeah, that was pretty much it. So Triple H beating Sheamus in the way that he did, it pretty much sensed that, yeah, a rematch was coming post WrestleMania, and indeed it was. When Sheamus attacked Triple H the next night on Raw, and he beat Triple H in a rematch at Extreme Rules the next month, and not only beat Triple H, but he brutalized Triple H and took and took him out for many months. He wrote him off TV for many months to end a feud that essentially was basically Triple H's last as a full-time wrestler. Yeah, Triple H basically from 2011 up to when he retired, he was basically wrestling on a part-time basis from there on out. And unfortunately, there wasn't really much of a proper payoff for this feud because by the time Triple H did get back, Sheamus had fallen down, like really fell down to the card, down like the lower mid card, and Triple H, he was getting ready for his Mania match with The Undertaker the next year. So, yeah, a pretty forgettable match in Sheamus's first WrestleMania, but hey, I mean, you went up with the game. You still put up a solid first match, but not really one to write home about. So then we had our next matchup, which involved Rey Mysterio taking on the straight edge savior CM Punk. CM Punk at the time had probably one of the craziest but best gimmicks in the later 2009s and I say early to mid 2010s with this straight edge society. And yeah, him and his straight edge society in their long crusade of promoting the straight edge lifestyle of no drugs, no alcohol, no smoking. Yeah, it reached even higher levels when CM Punk first created the straight edge society, and that started with Luke Gallows, formerly known as Festives. He reintroduced him and having converted him to the straight edge lifestyle. And what initially started out as converting random fans and preaching that lifestyle, it pretty much turned into a militia. And 2 months prior to WrestleMania, they converted Serena Deeb, who obviously is now in AEW, Ring of Honor, and other promotions. So they converted Serena Deeb into the straight edge society before turning their attention to Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio beat CM Punk in a match, but then after the match, they beat him down. So Rey Mysterio in retaliation cost CM Punk his Money in the Bank qualifier, and that led to an escalation point of sorts, with probably the well-known segment of CM Punk interfering and interrupting Rey's celebration of his daughter Aaliyah's birthday, and pretty much getting creepily involved in that, and trying to get Rey to fight him in front of his family, which Rey didn't want to do. So after Rey and his family left the ring, we all saw that creepy visual of CM Punk singing happy birthday to Rey's daughter Aaliyah, which was a crazy yet still pretty good, damn good segment in my opinion. And yes, that segment included a future Dirty Daddy Dominic. So it's no wonder why Dom hates that man to this day. He was like fucking disturbed by that fucking man. So that set up this match for WrestleMania, and an additional stipulation was made prior to this match after Mysterio lost to Luke Gallows a week before. And that stipulation was Mysterio would join the Straight Edge Society if Mysterio lost to CM Punk at WrestleMania. So we get to the match itself, and before it started, CM Punk cut this promo. It's pretty much the usual stick that Punk was doing, preaching the straight edge lifestyle and promising to make sure that Rey would pledge allegiance to the Straight Edge Society. And I forgot, it was like one nation under no alcohol or whatever, something like that. And then meanwhile, you had Rey cosplaying in Avatar inspired gear, because Avatar at the time was like the highest grossing selling movie of all time. I'm not sure if it still is though, but someone can fact check me on that. But yeah, it was like a very popular movie at the time, and Rey based his gear on that, which was pretty cool gear. Unfortunately, his entrance, not so much, because it botched. It had a little malfunction there. But yeah, the match itself, it was a slow start, but it picked up pretty quickly. And I really was liking this match. It had some nice counters from both of them. They both had some great chemistry, but maybe it picked up a little too quickly because we would soon get to the finish of the match, which would see Ray go for the 619, only for Serena to protect CM Punk, and then Luke Gallows would get on the other side of the ring to try and distract Ray, only to end up eating a flying Punk after Ray reversed the go to sleep. And that allowed Ray to hit the 619 and a springboard splash onto CM Punk to win this surprisingly short match. Yeah, it was a short match that clocked at 6.5 minutes. Like, as soon as it started to pick up, it was over. But yeah, Ray avoided pledging allegiance to the Straight Edge Society that day in 2010. But man, I wish it went on a little bit longer. Now, I'm one of those guys that's all for short matches, but at the same time, I'm also for long matches, as long as the story warranted it. But yeah, 6.5 minutes when a match is just starting to pick up. Yeah, that wasn't it, Chief. Like, that wasn't it. That was not it. Like, it was way too short. Like, it had the crowd hooked. And yeah, it just ends like in a blink of an eye. And it also sucked for Rey Mysterio too, because here he was yet again, like his WrestleMania 21 match. I mean, it had a decent length against Eddie, but his WrestleMania 22 match was egregiously short when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. And then the year prior, he only had 21 seconds to work with to win the Intercontinental title off of JBL. Like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that, man? But I don't know. Like, I just wish this match was, like, I'd say give it like 3 more minutes, and then it would have been one of the show stealers of that night. But despite the negatives, the feud would continue, and they would have even better matches and with more time to shine. At both Extreme Rules, Punk would win that one, and then the tiebreaker at Over the Limit, that debut pay-per-view, and Ray would get its ultimate get back on CM Punk once and for all in the end, and that was shaving Punk's big ass head. Shaving that thing bald. So yeah, it was one of the better feuds of 2010 in what was considered a dark period for WWE, which being the PG era. So yeah, probably one of the better feuds of that time. So a little bit of a rough start though with that very short match, which given more time, I thought would have been a very, very good match. So then we move on to the next match. That was 13 years in the making, and that was Bret the Hitman Hart taking on the WWE chairman, Mr. McMahon, in a no-holds-barred match. If you didn't know the story of this match, or just the story in general between the rivalry of Bret Hart and Mr. McMahon, or Vince McMahon, whatever you want to call him, yeah, you could call it like Bret screwed Bret, Vince screwed Bret, however you want to name it. But in the context of this match, it was all set up when Bret the Hitman Hart made his first WWE appearance on that January 4th, 2010 episode of Monday Night Raw. And that was his first appearance in WWE for the first time since, I guess, outside, like in 12 or 13 years, outside of his 2006 Hall of Fame induction. Yeah, that was pretty much the first time that Bret appeared in WWE. That night, he made amends with Shawn Michaels earlier that night for the Montreal Screwjob. And he was looking to do the same with Vince. And while it seemed to head that way, Vince once again screwed Bret by kicking him in the nuts to end that episode of Raw. So then you begin this new rivalry that was further escalated when McMahon refused to induct Bret's father, Stu, into the Hall of Fame. And that led to Hart attacking Vince. And yeah, Vince got challenged to a match by Bret at WrestleMania. He accepted it at first, but then he called it off after Hart attacked him. And then Bret was about to say goodbye to the WWE fans, but then he got into a car accident. Why did I use the air quotes? We'll talk about that in a bit. that crushed his leg. So, seeing this as a golden opportunity, McMahon used that weeks later to give Bret a challenge of his own at WrestleMania because of that injury, to which Bret accepted after Vince taunted his butt. So they have a contract signing, which was moderated by Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was the guest host of that night, where multiple things happened. Austin reversed McMahon's decision to not induct Stu Hart into the Hall of Fame. And then McMahon agreed to Bret's request for a no-holds-barred match. However, he also found out that that car accident, which I said in air quotes, and that leg injury that I also said in air quotes, was just a setup by both John Cena and Bret Hart to force Mr. McMahon into this match. And yeah, pretty much Bret Hart was fine the whole time, which was proven when Bret Hart slapped the leg cast into Mr. McMahon's silly. So yeah, that was pretty much your lead up for this match. And I gotta say, if pretty much all the video packages, the pre-match video packages for this WrestleMania, and honestly, just in general, like even nowadays, they're just so dang good. Like, that's pretty much WWE's biggest strength. Like even if some of a lot of the modern WWE matches and storytelling is crappy, they can still try to piece together a pretty dang good video package. Like I'll give WWE at least that much of credit. So anyway, the pre-match video package for this match, it was so well done, detailing the history between Bret and Vince, and yeah, it was doing a great job informing people that hadn't watched in weeks, months, or like just at all, in trying to get them up to speed. So for the match itself, before it got started, you had Vince announcing that he gave a big handsome full of money to some lumberjacks and got himself a special guest referee, also with a handsome full of money, for this WrestleMania size screwing of Bret. Those lumberjacks being the entire Hart family, which included the Hart dynasties, Natalia, Tyson Kidd, and David Hart Smith, who competed in the pre-show battle royal, by the way, minus Natalia, of course. And then you had, as the special guest referee, Bruce Hart. So, yeah, it seemed like the ultimate WrestleMania screwing was about to get underway for Bret the Hitman Hart. Yeah, it seemed like Mr. McMahon was once again gonna screw Bret, but Bret was just one step ahead of Vince, because Bret and the Hart family, they knew what was gonna happen. The family told Bret what they were gonna do to Vince McMahon, and so basically, they took Vince's money. They took Vince's money anyway. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So, yeah, to paraphrase Bret, WrestleMania 26 was gonna be the night forever remembered that Bret screwed Vince. I mean, let's be real though. Did anyone really believe that the Hart family was gonna really turn on Bret? Like, really? So yeah, the match itself, I mean, from there, it was basically a methodical beatdown by the whole Hart family. Well, mainly it was just Bret and the Hart dynasty, and even Natalia too got a good old bitch slap on Mr. McMahon. Although I will say, it could have been a lot shorter, in my opinion, because yeah, like we already knew what was gonna happen anyway. Like Vince was just gonna get his just desserts, and then yeah, Bret was gonna make his ass tap out. And so like, why did it need to go on like for like 5 minutes than it needed to? So like we got the point like 3 minutes in. So it's like you might have to go like 8 minutes longer. So yeah, like they had to go on like a lot longer. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we knew what we were gonna get to. I mean, I like the story that they told, because 13 years in the making, Bret finally getting his justice on Vince McMahon, and the fans were eating it up too. Like that was the important part. I just thought though that they could have had the same match with, a little bit shorter amount of time, because the story was getting told already, and they're both limited physically at the age they were at, so they really couldn't do much. But at least they got to the happy ending, which saw Brett making Vince tap to the sharpshooter to the delight of the Phoenix crowd and the Hart family as they all celebrated in the ring. So yeah, that pretty much brought closure to the Montreal Screwjob and Brett. And yeah, that's pretty much how this match ended. So Brett did a few more things in 2010, including a brief run as the Raw general manager, and even had a day or two tenure as the United States champion. Yeah, I totally forgot about that until now. And then he also got involved a little bit in the Nexus story during the summer, and also was a part of that SummerSlam match. Maybe I'll do a retro review on that, but I don't know. So yeah, Bret Hart finally got his closure on Vince McMahon, making him tap out on the grandest stage of them all. And yeah, I'd say solid storytelling to cap off 13 years in the making for Bret the Hitman Hart. So afterwards, we got an announcement that was made at the time for the host of the following year's WrestleMania XXVII, and it was another first-time city in Atlanta, Georgia, in the now demolished Georgia Dome, the now demolished home of the Atlanta Falcons. And yeah, 2 straight years of 2 first-time cities that have yet to receive another WrestleMania. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Arizona and Atlanta. So anyway, we move on to the next match, and that was the World Heavyweight Championship on the line as Chris Jericho took on the rated R superstar Edge. This story goes way back to June 2009 at the Bash pay-per-view, where Edge and Chris Jericho, they were previously tag team partners, albeit very short tag team partners, as they teamed up to win the unified WWE tag team titles. But unfortunately, 3 weeks later, Edge tore his Achilles at a house show, and he had to vacate his half of the undisputed tag team titles. But despite that, Jericho found himself a new partner weeks later in Big Show to form Jeri-Show. And yeah, throughout the next couple of months, and immediately afterwards too, he pretty much distanced himself from Edge and pretty much downplayed him and took all the credit for their very short-term success. So months later, you had Edge return in the Royal Rumble match at number 28, or was it 27? Either way, number 27 or number 28, very late in the match, and he eliminated Jericho en route to winning the match itself. So Edge won the Royal Rumble, and he bided his time to make his decision on which champion to face, either the WWE or World Heavyweight Champion. So by the end of February, you had Jericho win the World Heavyweight title inside the Elimination Chamber at said pay-per-view, albeit with some certain help, which we'll talk about later, which made the decision for Edge much easier. As the next night on Raw, Edge picked Jericho. So yeah, you'd think that the events that I mentioned prior would get brought up. Now, it kind of did. It kind of did at the beginning, but then once you get to the actual lead up after Edge picked Jericho, yeah, not so much afterwards. I was like pretty disappointed, like, looking back at the story of, like, a story of video leading up to this match. Like, they turned Edge into a spear merchant, much like how prior to this past Monday on Raw in the last 2 weeks, for this build-up between Jey Uso and Gunther for their upcoming WrestleMania match. Yeah, they turned Jey into a yeet merchant, but at least they're at least making Jey Uso a little bit more serious. But for this particular match, they made Edge into a spear merchant. Yeah, but the crowd, the crowd was eating it up, sure. But I was like, this is the rated R superstar, man. Like, he is more than just a spear merchant. But neither Edge nor Jericho were given much good material to work with to build their story. Other than, well, there was one particular aspect, and that was Edge's previously injured Achilles. So they did play that part up at least. So that was kind of something, but not much else to work with other than that. So for the match itself, it did take a little while for the match to get the crowd into it because they did start off very slow. But once we got to the back half of this match, it really picked up. And that's where I really liked it from there. Like, Edge was trying to hit the spear on Jericho all match long. But Jericho, he pretty much had an answer for everything to stop it. Whether it was the fruit roll-up into the walls of Jericho or hitting Edge mid-spear attempt into a code breaker, which led to some pretty nice near falls and led to those nice counters by Jericho. And yeah, it led to a really smooth match between both of them. Some really good story beats were told later into this match as well. When Jericho started targeting Edge's previously injured Achilles, he began stomping on it, locking in the walls of Jericho really hard, and then stopping a rope break by Edge by transitioning into a single leg Boston Crab to apply more pressure on that Achilles before Edge forced another rope break. So I really liked that, and it really played an impact towards the end of the match. After a spill onto the floor, Jericho desperately grabbed the World Heavyweight title and managed to hit Edge with the title without the referee seeing because Edge accidentally hit the referee. So yeah, that led to another close 2 count, which left everyone shook. Everyone was on their feet thinking that Edge would have a chance to, get back into it, rally back. But unfortunately, Jericho finished off Edge with one final code breaker to retain the World Heavyweight title. So I'll give my thoughts on it in a bit because there was something that happened post-match. So post-match, yeah, Jericho tried to injure Edge even more, but he turned it around and reversed reversed Jericho with the injury card by injuring Jericho instead, by going from announce table to announce table and spearing Jericho through the barricade. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of that. So yeah, whether I was a youngling or where I'm at now, rewatching it, I was honestly disappointed. I was honestly disappointed that Edge didn't win that match. Because yeah, no matter how good that match was, and don't get me wrong, it was a pretty good match. I was disappointed that Edge didn't win that match. Like, even if, yeah, the story beats were not there, for the most part, like, they did I'd say they did a pretty good job, selling me on the fact that Edge was going to rally back, despite Jericho targeting that Achilles, and Edge was going to rally back to win the World Heavyweight title and get revenge on Jericho for all the shit talk that Jericho did on Edge while he was out injured. The crowd in Arizona was red hot for him to get his get back and get the World Heavyweight title back. And they were waiting for Edge to hit that spear on Jericho. And it didn't happen at all until the post-match stuff. And where the crowd, yeah, they were just like, that just took the wind out of their sails when Jericho retained. So, yeah, it should, like, the result should have been paid off properly. With Edge getting his get back on Jericho and taking the World Heavyweight title on the biggest stage. Because when you look at what happened afterward on SmackDown, Edge once again attacked Jericho, who was now injured because of that spear through the barricade. And then you had the Mr. Money in the Bank, Jack Swagger, who, like, a couple of days prior, failed to cash in on John Cena. Yeah, he failed to cash in on John Cena. Spoiler alert. And then he decided to, cash in on Edge. Not cash in on Edge. Attack Edge before cashing in his Money in the Bank contract and win the World Heavyweight Championship on Chris Jericho, while also stripping away any somewhat enjoyable personality of Jack Swagger and turning him into a more serious guy. Like, any smiles on his face, it was converted into a more serious persona for whatever sudden reason. And that led to one of the worst World Heavyweight title runs in modern history afterwards. But thankfully, it was only for 2 months because, yeah, Vince realized, like, oh shit, this was a mistake. And yeah, it seriously was, because Jack Swagger didn't do anything notable with that title, nor could the crowd buy into him as the World Heavyweight Champion. Especially, yeah, when Big Show was whooping his ass during that feud, during that time frame. Meanwhile, you had Edge and Chris Jericho. They're still duking it out against each other. And they blew off their feud at Extreme Rules inside a steel cage. Edge won that, but it was like, what was the point? The whole point of this feud was for Edge to get his get back on Jericho and get the World Heavyweight Championship back. Like that should have been the capper. Like, what Vince should have done at that time was get his payback on Chris Jericho, get the World Heavyweight Championship, you know, cap off that Royal Rumble win with both of those things, and then, you know, slowly build Jack Swagger up with some more credibility. So when he did cash in, whether it was going to be on Edge or whoever's going to be the next World Heavyweight Champion, yeah, give him some credibility. At least make Jack Swagger somewhat more credible and a more serious threat as a world champion. But yeah, Vince really rushed it, and at the end of it, no one really benefited. Neither three of them benefited from what happened in not even a month's time. So yeah, this World Heavyweight Championship match, for as good as it was, didn't really help anyone. So the next match, it certainly didn't help anyone, and that was a 10 Diva tag team match. And the teams were, on Team 1, the Women's Champion, Michelle McCool, the Divas Champion, Maurice, Layla, Alicia Fox, and Vicky Guerrero. In Team 2, you had Mickie James, Beth Phoenix, Eve Torres, Kelly Kelly, and Gail Kim. I don't have a lot to say about this match because this was only 3 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty much, the state of the women's division during the time. It was the time where, time to go get a snack, time to go to use the restroom while the lines weren't long, or time to go take a stretch break. So for the match itself, the good girls took turns beating up on Vicky Guerrero because the bad girls decided to make Vicky start the match for whatever reason, before it became a total finisher spam, starting with Michelle putting Kelly Kelly down with a face breaker, and then Kelly Kelly was just lying down there for the remainder of the match. And then the finisher spam ended with Beth Phoenix taking out Alicia Fox with a glam slam. And it seemed like Vicky Guerrero was done for until Michelle saved her for Vicky's WrestleMania moment. And that WrestleMania moment being the hog splash, as Michael Cole called it, to Kelly Kelly to win a very quick and very bad tag team match. Yeah, you know things were bad for the women's division when you had Vicky Guerrero do the hog splash. Although I will say the tribute to Eddie Guerrero before the hog splash was pretty nice to see, and post match too, by the way. But it was so bad this women's division was at the time when you had to do the finish, the pin twice because Kelly Kelly's shoulders were up on the first attempt. I mean, sure, for most people, the women's division is in a much better state, but let's be honest, it's not really much better under Triple H. Like, let's be for real. At least booking wise. So then we move on to the next match, and that was the first of two main caliber main events, and that was the WWE Champion Batista taking on John Cena. This is just the second time of both guys that were the top two stars in the Ruthless Aggression era facing each other. And this time around, there was, I'd say, a deeper story involved, somewhat. So, the night after the Royal Rumble, Batista saved Mr. McMahon from an attack by Bret Hart. And after Raw ended, he also attacked John Cena when he tried to help Bret. Weeks later, at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, Batista had won the WWE title off of John Cena in an immediate title match that Cena had to endure after winning the title inside of the Elimination Chamber. So the next night on Raw, Mr. McMahon granted Cena a chance to get a rematch at WrestleMania as long as he could beat Batista later that night. So Cena did so, only because Batista intentionally disqualified himself by kicking Cena in the dick before deciding to brutally attack Cena again, just because of Batista's ego. So then you had the rest of the build-ups around, a clash between two of the biggest faces. When I mean faces, I mean franchise faces of the Ruthless Aggression era. Because Batista was envious. He was jealous of Cena's controversial rise as the face of the WWE, when he believed he was supposed to get the fame and the glory at the time. Because for those of you that don't know, 5 years prior, Batista and Cena were crowned as the top two faces of the WWE at WrestleMania 21. Batista had won the World Heavyweight title, while a match prior, Cena had won the WWE title. And yeah, both were the top two faces of WWE. But at the time, in less than a year, Cena had supplanted Batista as the top man, even if the ratings continued to slide further over the years, regardless of whoever was the top man. Reason why Cena had supplanted Batista as the top guy? Well, casuals, mainly families, women, and kids, they could relate with Cena more. And Vince could rely on John Cena more because, I like Batista too. But in my opinion, for as popular and skilled as Batista was, he had some injury issues. He got injured. The 2006 injury was accidental. All injuries are accidental, but he had a few frequent injuries throughout the years in the 5 years that followed. So Vince was starting to get a little concerned that Batista was injury prone. And compared to Cena, he had two major injuries, and that was pretty much that. So regardless of what you thought about them at the time, even though they had faced each other prior then, that being at SummerSlam 2008, the top two stars at the time were facing each other ironically where they were first crowned as such 5 years prior, WrestleMania. And yeah, that was, at the time, it wasn't really even considered a top match either. It wasn't even billed as such a big match, which is interesting given that, you thought it would be a big deal, but honestly, it really wasn't, surprisingly. So for this match, Batista got his spotlight entrance because at the time he was a heel. He went full on heel, and I thought this was one of his best works, other than his feud with Triple H in 2005. So yeah, his heel work, his heel run prior to leaving the WWE, this was his best work. He got the spotlight entrance, and then Cena, he got the entrance with the U.S. Air Force doing their drill entrance, and then probably having the fastest WrestleMania entrance out of everybody that night, and probably his fastest WrestleMania entrance ever, because he sonic sprinted down the long entrance ramp before the part even played in this song. He rushed down that ramp right away after he did his salute, and at that point of the song. Yeah, that long ass ramp. So yeah, once the bell rang, it got sloppy pretty early. There were two rough moves that both of them did, very early on, the rough suplex from Cena, and then the DDT counter by Batista from the AA. But they both shook it off to lock in for a really good match. It told a really good story. That story being, which Matt Striker told better than Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler did, was Cena desperately trying to finally get the better of Batista, but Batista was just simply dominating him at every turn because Batista's just more powerful than Cena was. The main turn that all five of them kept pointing towards was that surgically repaired neck from Cena, which Batista had injured in their previous match at SummerSlam 2008. And what I really liked about this match, though, was where the last couple of minutes, Cena did his usual rally, but Batista turned the 5-knuckle shuffle into a spine buster, only for Cena to counter the Batista bomb into the first FTF, which resulted in a rope break. And then later on in that match, Cena did a top rope 5-knuckle shuffle, but Batista countered an AA with the Batista bomb that Cena kicked out of, to the shock of Batista in the crowd, which that crowd, by the way, was at that time was pretty split on Cena, but it was kind of pro Cena. It was kind of pro Cena, I believe. But anyway, back to this match. Cena countered a second Batista bomb into an AA for his own near fall, to his own disbelief, wondering what he would have to do. And yeah, he would make the same mistake that he did at SummerSlam 2008, leaping into Batista with that leg drop, only for Batista to kind of do a similar thing from SummerSlam 2008. Only this time, hit Cena with a spine buster midair that seemingly set up the end for Cena. But this time, Cena was ready for him. He turned a third Batista bomb into the STF that forced Batista to tap out, and Cena won back the WWE title. So, really good match here that doesn't really get talked about when looking back at prior WrestleManias, or really good good WrestleMania matches. So, yeah, I thought this was a really good WrestleMania match, and me personally, I'm one of those people that like WrestleMania matches that a lot of people don't remember, and it's a good thing. I remember now. I now remember this WrestleMania match, and now I get it. A lot of people didn't like that Cena won this match, and it went hot potato back to him. But the moment you realize that Cena was gonna be in an immediate title match versus Batista a month prior at the Elimination Chamber, after winning the title first inside the Elimination Chamber, I mean, it's pretty obvious what direction that Vince McMahon was going to have Cena and Batista go into, right? I mean, it's pretty clear and obvious. So the lead up of this match, I believe it matched up to the match itself. And Batista dominated a lot of this match, like in the build up, and Cena rallied back to defy his self-doubt, just like in the build up. And that would lead to this really well-told simplified yet well-told story and a well-told match. So I like the result of this match. I mean, for as much as other people didn't at the time. And I thought it's a super underrated match. It's an example of a match exceeding expectations with simple yet good storytelling both before and during the match. So the two would face each other again in 2 more title rematches at both the Extreme Rules and Over the Limit pay-per-views. The first one at Extreme Rules being the last man standing match, where it gets memed for the ending with the duct tape on Batista's legs. And then at Over the Limit in an I Quit match with, the ending also being memorable for Cena giving Batista the attitude adjustment off the car through the stage, which led to Batista quitting WWE the next night on Raw, as he did indeed leave for real to begin his acting and brief MMA career. But the acting career is still going to this day for Batista, though. But yeah, the match itself, I like this one. And it's still a match that doesn't get talked about a lot this day, but I do believe that it should. Because of a simple yet good story of 2 ruthless aggression stars going at it for the WWE title. And yeah, Batista, having some pretty good reasons why he believes he should be the top guy over John Cena. But John Cena also having some good reasons of why he's on top. So some good stuff here for this WWE title match. But here's the reason why we're doing this retro review of WrestleMania 26. And if you made it this far, I'm glad you did. Because for this WrestleMania 26 retro review, this was the cherry topper. This was why we're here. And that was the main event. The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels in a no disqualification Streak versus Career match. why exactly did this match, a match that happened a year prior, even though it wasn't the main event, but technically for many people, should have been the main event of the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, should have been the main event. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we got to this point from the previous WrestleMania to this specific WrestleMania. So, at the WrestleMania prior, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker faced each other in probably one of the best, if not the best, WrestleMania matches of all time. And what probably, in general, one of the best pro wrestling matches of all time. But for Shawn Michaels, he came up just short of beating The Undertaker and ending his, at the time, 16-0 undefeated streak. And later, at the end of 2009, when accepting a Slammy Award for Match of the Year, Michaels thought he could still beat The Undertaker, and he decided to challenge him to a rematch, thus beginning the road to this main event of WrestleMania 26. Undertaker initially refused, claiming he had nothing left to prove by beating Michaels again, and Undertaker at the time, when he said no, he was the World Heavyweight Champion. So unlike their first Mania match, where it didn't really have a lot of story beats, other than Shawn Michaels trying to get into The Undertaker's head and cosplaying a opposite version of The Undertaker with the dark versus light stuff, you knew this was going to have even more even better story beats from here, as the desperation of HBK to get that rematch from The Undertaker is going to go into overdrive, because HBK entered the Royal Rumble, entered an Elimination Chamber qualifier, but he lost both of them. And each and every time he lost both of them, and when he lost the undisputed tag team titles to Big Show and The Miz, it made HBK even crazier. Each and every week that he couldn't get a crack at The Undertaker, he went ballistic. And he attacked the referee, he attacked General Manager Teddy Long, and he also imploded with Triple H. Triple H saying, like, is this how you want your career to go down? Is this how you really want you really want to do so-and-so? Like, is how you're willing to go to get something with The Undertaker? I'm not sure what the exact words were, but that's pretty much how things went for Shawn Michaels, all to get a rematch with The Undertaker at WrestleMania. So that all led to Michaels breaking into the Elimination Chamber in the main event of that pay-per-view and costing The Undertaker the match and the World Heavyweight title by giving him sweet chin music, and allow his other hated rival, Chris Jericho, to win the match and the World Heavyweight title, and allow Jericho to face Edge for the World Heavyweight title at this WrestleMania, all to finally get the dead man's attention. So, yeah, the next night on Raw, Undertaker finally accepted the rematch, but on one condition. Michaels loses, his career is over. HBK agreed to that condition, stating, and I quote, "If I can't beat you at WrestleMania, I have no career," setting up this epic streak versus career main event match at Mania. And with another additional stipulation being no disqualification in order to determine a true winner. So just like I said, a lot of the pre-match video packages for this Mania, this one was produced so good and in assuring like what fans were missing, or what fans could expect, whether you were a casual or hardcore fan trying to catch up to speed. Yeah, this one was like very well done, and probably the best one in selling people on why this match was headlining this particular WrestleMania. But unlike the match a year prior, there were no theatrics from either man. Everything was kept simple with their entrances. They were in their regular. Everything was kept to a regular. They both made their traditional entrances. They had this epic stare down that saw HBK mimic the throat slash of The Undertaker, as we knew we were gonna be in for another classic between two of the best in the WWE and in wrestling in general. And much like the previous year, this was epic. This was a classic. Only now with the new spin and even better storytelling. Like Undertaker dominating the early going and pretty much a quarter of this match, but he had to overcome a knee injury that he tweaked after hitting Old School on HBK and tweaking that knee on the landing. And he had to fight through that pain throughout the rest of the match, as HBK tried to take advantage of that, whether it was chop blocking the Undertaker, locking him in the figure four, anything to keep his career alive. But even with the Undertaker dominating, HBK was not going to go quietly into the night. And that included some pretty big spots from the dead man, like a tombstone pile driver onto the floor, with HBK's head landing hard on that. So, yeah, HBK was not going to go down that quietly. So, later in the match, you had sweet chin music from Shawn Michaels hit out of nowhere towards the halfway point, and a tired-ass crowd. Like, this was a pretty long WrestleMania. Like, I believe this is like, we were getting to that 3.5 hour, 4 hour mark. They were getting back into it, given that this was the match that everyone had been anticipating for. And by that point in the night, there was a lot of filler, but they're finally getting back into it. Even if it was close to, that got them back into it. So Undertaker countered another sweet chin music attempt into the last ride for another near fall. So he decided to take things outside, only to eat another sweet chin music, and found himself laying on the announce table for one of the match's memorable spots. And that memorable spot being a top rope moonsault from HBK onto the announce table. And then HBK found himself going, well, he was just like flailing around and then splat down on the ground. So, yeah, that happened. And then they both got back in the ring. HBK gives the dead man as hard of a sweet chin music as you could possibly have to the head. But unfortunately, it's another very close to. And as soon as you knew it, the sun was setting real low for the Heartbreak Kid and his career. Like, somehow, some way, like, you knew the end was coming. That's because another sweet chin music attempt was met by a choke slam and a tombstone pile driver. But like I said before, HBK wasn't going to go quietly into the night. He still had a little bit of life left in his career. Like the year prior, he kicked out at the 0.00009th of a second to the shock of The Undertaker and the tired-ass Arizona fans, who finally had full of energy left in them, and they were chanting, "This is awesome," and rightfully so. And then we had the memorable finish, the memorable closing finish. Undertaker was signaling for the end, but he stopped midway through. And I thought this was a very memorable moment. Like, he was going to do the slash, but then he stopped halfway through in a very rare moment of mercy, sympathy, you name it, from The Undertaker. Like, he's usually not sympathetic, like merciless. He doesn't have any sympathy for his opponent. But here, like, he had it for HBK. Like, he told him to stay down. Like, he didn't want to end him the way that he did. But HBK, like, he was just like dead. He was like near death by this point. But he was like fighting till the very end. He was like crawling, trying to get his butt up. And even though HBK was on his last legs, he was crawling up to the Undertaker. Undertaker was telling him to stay down. But HBK didn't want to. And in one last act of defiance, he taunted the dead man and even gave him one last good old slap to the face. And the Undertaker, mad as all hell, picked him up and gave him a jumping tombstone pile driver to bury HBK and his career for good and send the Undertaker 18-0 at WrestleMania. And like I said, end Shawn Michaels' career for good. Man, what a match. What a match to like dissect, like rewatch. Like, oh man. Like, Now, having watched both of their WrestleMania matches from the year prior, like, and now this one, like, I've watched both, like, I'd say a couple times, like a few times now, and there has been a lot of debate over the years on which of the two WrestleMania matches between them were better, and a lot of people say the first one at 25 was better, and there are some that say the one at 26 was better. And yeah, I'm not sure if it'd be a heated debate, but there is a debate. If you want my personal opinion on this matter, and it relates to the match itself, you know, for as great as their 25 match was, I gotta say, and it might get me some heat on this, I gotta go with 26. It's the one I remember the most from. It's just me. Oos. I remember 26 a lot more. Not because I have the DVD. Not because of that, okay? No, seriously. 26 was just the better match overall, because even if they had the sense of inevitability and predictability that Shawn Michaels' career was going to end, like this match made the viewer at least believe just a little bit, both leading into and during the match, that HBK still had a strong enough chance to save his 25-year career and end the 17-0 streak of The Undertaker. There was at least a believable chance that HBK can have a miracle shot of ending the streak and saving his career, because there was a lot of high drama, great counters from both of them, and the storytelling was just off the rails, and in a good way, of course, from start to finish. Like the desperation of HBK, willing to go to any and all lengths to keep his career alive, even if he had to die trying. Like, especially when you get towards the end of the match, like he was on his last legs, and you just saw the Undertaker. The Undertaker, yeah, he was the better wrestler in the end, but you saw like some interesting character traits that you hadn't really seen from the Undertaker before, like a little bit of mercy, a little bit of sympathy for his opponent. Like you didn't really see that from the Undertaker at the time, until when push came to shove, of course, when he got slapped by HBK. So yeah, that's why I really liked the match at WrestleMania 26 more than 25, because I mean, 25 was good in terms of the wrestling, but there wasn't really too much of a story going into it, because it was just two legends. I mean, they faced each other before, but not on the biggest stage at the time. But 26, it just told a much more balanced, coherent story that could really sink into the viewer. So I just thought that 26 was a really great match, probably the better match of the two, and was a proper payoff and a proper conclusion to that rivalry, and a proper send-off to one of the best in professional wrestling. So after the fireworks of Undertaker going 18-0 went off, he rose HBK up to his feet, and he shook his hand. They both showed mutual respect for one another, in another very rare instance from The Undertaker, as he left the ring to give the Shawn Michaels one last spotlight and one last standing ovation in front of 72,000 fans in State Farm Stadium, formerly known as University of Phoenix Stadium, to close out this WrestleMania. Sure, he pretty much ruined this moment 8 years later by taking a Saudi paycheck for the match that shall not be named. This was still a great moment. This was still a great moment that capped off a great match, and one that I still will always remember. This match is something that I'll always remember, down and forever. Like, this is one of my favorite matches of all time, and I'm gonna say it again, even if it'll get me some controversial opinions on it. This is still the better match between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. in terms of WrestleMania matches. Yeah, this is the better than the 25 match. So overall, when it comes to this WrestleMania 26, when I was little, it traces back to the very beginning of this retro review. I thought this was my third favorite WrestleMania. But now that I've got a chance to rewatch it as an adult and having seen a lot more WrestleManias, whether it was over the years or doing these retro reviews, I gotta say, admittedly, it's a mixed bag. I have to be honest with you, it's a mixed bag. Like, it's not the worst WrestleMania in the world. It's not the greatest, like I thought it was back then when I was young. But I gotta say that it's kind of not what I thought it used to be, if we're being honest. So when we look back at this WrestleMania 26, like the obvious most memorable standout moment and match was the main event, Streak versus Career. In my opinion, better match between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. So obviously that's the number one biggest match, the biggest takeaway from this WrestleMania. And that's pretty much the final match of Shawn Michaels' career. And not talking about, the match that happened 8 years later for HBK. No, we don't talk about that one, okay? And that will never be mentioned here. But I mean, other than that, there were a few other notable things from this show that also deserve some praise that doesn't get talked about enough from other people, but I will mention, like the WWE title match between Batista and John Cena. That's an underrated match that deserves more praise. There's also the World Heavyweight Championship match between Jericho and Edge, minus the winner, the decision to book Jericho as the winner. I still question that, and that goes to my next point. Their show suffered from questionable booking decisions that didn't work out in the long run. Looking at the World Heavyweight title match and the Money in the Bank ladder matches, and then it suffered from some serious pacing issues for a lot of the matches. Like the opening match was way too short, and then CM Punk and Rey Mysterio, for example, was shorter than it shouldn't have been. Like, it deserved a couple more minutes because it was picking up pretty well and then ended quicker than it needed to. So overall, when you look back at this WrestleMania, it wasn't the worst, but it also wasn't the best. I'd say for a WrestleMania that on paper, other than the 10 Diva tag team match, you'd think that it would be a good, at least a great WrestleMania. By my opinion, it's a WrestleMania that was left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. Like, if you remove, like I'd say if you cut down the Brett versus Vince match, in terms of time, and you give like half of that time to CM Punk versus Ray, and then I'd say you take out the Undisputed Tag Team title match too, I'd say you have a pretty good WrestleMania 26 card. So yeah, overall this WrestleMania 26, again, I'd say it's not bad, but it's kind of I'd say it's a little disappointing if you ask me, looking back on it. But it doesn't mean you don't have to completely avoid it, because whether you're watching it for the first time or rewatching it again, it's an all right Mania. I could pass on to you, but don't expect anything too big from it, other than the WWE title match and the main event of Streak versus Career between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. So, with all that being said, let me know what you thought about this WrestleMania, and whether you watched it for the first time recently, or whether you plan on watching it for the first time after hearing about my thoughts on it in this retro review, or you recently rewatched it as well. Let me know about it in the comments on YouTube, and your takes on it, or slide into the DMs on my socials on X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. Let's have a conversation about WrestleMania 26 and If there are some other facts that I missed about this show, also let me know about it on one way or another. So, let's have a conversation going about this WrestleMania 26 as we continue along our retro road to WrestleMania. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for another long episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I've been your filthy casual host, Dylan Lasagna, wrapping up episode number 264 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all your filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you casual fans out there like you and me. And until I see you, when I see you for the next episode, we'll see which WrestleMania we want to do next as we get closer and closer to this upcoming WrestleMania. And I'm still deciding if I want to do a review, but of this upcoming WrestleMania in Vegas, but we'll see if I want to, if I feel like it. We shall see. But until then, until I see you when I see you in the next one, peace out.